think one of the things that makes Superman and Lois a great show, something that sets it apart, is the fact that it embraces that it's its own thing. It doesn't purport to be really anything like the comics. Superman's suit has a bit of a flavor of the New 52 with the belt area, but also you got that kind of classic looking collar. There's a little bit of rebirth, pre-reborn Superman suit in there. It's just a very well formulated, but its own thing, television Superman suit. I would argue probably the best one, aside from a classic suit, that we've ever seen on the small screen. The show changes how characters exist and their relations to each other in very drastic ways. In the comic books, Jonathan is the only child of Superman and Lois. Therefore, he's the powered one. But in the TV show, we have Jonathan and Jordan. Jordan being the powered one, and so far, Jonathan being the depowered one. The one that is more like, so far, his mother. Powerless. Just left, as in episode 8 states, holding the wrench for the person that's doing all the heavy lifting. So that's a huge change. And then we have a universe where John Henry Irons, in his planet, from his Earth, in his multiverse, is married to Lois Lane and has a child called Natasha, where in the comic books, again, I can't recall any time when John Henry Irons, that's Steel to those of you who don't pay attention, you're maybe just casual comic readers, Steel is the fella in the all-metal supersuit with the big steel S on his chest and the big hammer and the red cape. I can't recall any time in actual comic book continuity where Steel was ever married to Lois Lane. And at any time where Natasha was his daughter. Natasha has always been his niece. There are many, many ways where this show just differentiates itself from the comic books, and they embrace their differences, which is good because it's a multiverse. And it's been established that the Earth, that the CW verse, the main CW verse exists on, with all of its variants, is just part of the multiverse. So that's a thing. So I'm okay with it. One of the reasons why I had a problem with Smallville was that it wasn't so much the teen drama at first, but it was the fact that it purported to be the early life of Superman as Clark Kent. It didn't try to play itself off like it was just a different Earth version of Clark Kent. It just was purported as, oh, this is Clark Kent when he was in Smallville before he became Superman. And as the show began to take more and more liberties with various characters and introduce them into Clark's timeline before he was Superman, I began to feel like they were just cramming as much as they could into the show to make it a recognizable comic book DC Comics show while also staying true to the mythology they were creating, and I just saw it as a cop-out. Now I watch Smallville, and I really enjoy it. I just take it for what it is, because now they've incorporated it into the CW verse as a whole, and it really is just meant to be another Earth in the multiverse, where that particular Earth's Clark went through all that stuff. And I can separate the idea that my main Superman in comic book continuity not only has changed over the years, like everyone's got a favorite era of Superman, but the comic book is different than the TV show. So I feel like the CW is doing some very good things with Superman and Lois, feeling like they have the leeway to tell their own stories and not be beholden to what other people who, like myself, read the source material, are really demanding that the show be like. And because of that, they're able to tell a very interesting story that I feel like they wouldn't be able to tell otherwise. And I wouldn't have it any other way. I like the fact that they're telling stories that are new, and yet the old stories and the old continuity and the current continuity still exist. They're all a thing that exists simultaneously. Now, the latest episode, I don't really know where to begin. This is going to be like my last discussion on Superman and Lois. It's not going to be a complete recap. It's just going to be the musings of someone who watched it and just spent the whole time just mouth half open, food half in, like, like that, because there was a lot that happened. There was a lot of ground to cover in this episode. A lot of stuff happened. So I'm just going to touch on a few points. For one, we see the relationship between Superman and John Henry in this episode, through the course of the episode, begin to become a something more, a something better than John Henry doesn't trust this Superman at all and just wants to kill him. We see it progress to the first stages of something that may become something very cool over the rest of the series. Superman, Clark, is trying to earn his trust, but he also doesn't really trust him himself. And by the end of the episode, we find that John Henry has a chance to go free. Because if you remember the last episode, John Henry was being held by the authorities, by the military, because he's a threat. He's a threat to Superman, therefore he's a threat to the world. This guy's a problem. And he was being held, and Superman's trying to reason with him and talk to him and find out what's going on. But the compassionate side of Superman understands exactly what he's going through, especially since Lois shared the information with him that she'd just learned by perusing through his high-tech space RV or whatever, that he's actually from a different Earth, and on that Earth, it was he and Lois that were married, and it was Superman that was evil. She gives all that knowledge to Superman, to Clark, and he begins to see John in a different light, and he really is doing his compassionate thing, and he wants to go in and try and talk to him. Sam just wants Lois to go in and talk to him. Maybe she can do her thing. But things begin to go south very quickly, because after Sam goes in and tries to talk to him and get information out of him, and you know, John Henry's not giving nothing up, doesn't trust Superman. He's trying to convince Sam that Superman's a bad guy because they were friends on their Earth. And, you know, he lets Sam Lane know that he died fighting for freedom and fighting to try and rid the world of Superman. When John Henry is being led back to his cell by two soldiers, we find out that one of the soldiers is a powered soldier. And they're actually hinting at, and I don't know how this fits in, honestly, that he's actually a Kryptonian in a human body. I'm not quite sure. Transplanting the consciousness of a Kryptonian into a human. How does the X-Kryptonite thing work? I'm not exactly sure. I haven't had enough time to digest that yet, but I either way, evil, superpowered, with all the powers of Superman, Kryptonian military dude, kills the other guy, and then takes John Henry, and he takes him down to an area where there's a bunch of weapons that have been created by Sam and his department just to nullify a Superman level threat, or specifically to nullify Superman should he ever go rogue. At that point, a battle ensues between Superman and this other rogue Superman-like being, where essentially this guy hands Clark his butt. Now, truth be told, Superman definitely gets affected by kryptonite grenades and inhaling kryptonite dust a lot more than the soldier does. Superman begins to get the upper hand and shove the kryptonite in his face, but Superman's already at a bigger disadvantage. And this guy's like, yeah, it's time for me to go. I would kill you, but you're lucky I got a plan. And he begins to hightail it out of there, but just as he turns around, John Henry is there with a kryptonite spear. And he jabs it right into this guy and just kills him, just like that. The spear was cool because it was emblematic of the DC Universe Online, because that's how Luthor jabs the spear into Superman. He could have been saved, but the spear was left in there. And then it's also emblematic of Batman v Superman, because again, it's a kryptonite spear. So a kryptonite spear is in John Henry's hands, and Superman is just laying there, unable to move under the radioactive effects of kryptonite, stripping him of his powers, making him feel, you know when you feel your sickest, sick to your stomach and you're fevering and you can't move and it's just the worst feeling ever? It times that by like 1,000, and that's what kryptonite feels like to Superman the longer he's under that radiation. So John Henry is there, spear above Superman's chest, about to kill him, about to end Superman. So that'd be the second time that John Henry has bested Superman in this show. First time being with the red light and his kinetic energy hammer. And it would also be the second time that Superman needs a member of his family to come and save him, that being Lois. Now, what's been happening on the Lois end of things? The show actually starts out in a very peculiar position, with Lois showing up to see a friend to obtain counsel, because she's just lost her cool. We don't know who she's lost her cool on in the beginning. We really don't know what's happened. And as the episode progresses, we find out that what's happened is, while all the Superman stuff is happening, Lois and Jonathan have been trying to go through the RV that belongs to John Stewart, trying to find out more information about him. They walk in. Of course, the AI wants her to say who she is, because if you're not verified, then it'll just kill you, which is where we're coming to. So she says that she's Lois Lane, and she's actually been granted authorization where she gets to look at this computer. The bed kind of folds up, and then there's this big supercomputer. How convenient. He sleeps on that? I'd be totally afraid of damaging the equipment by... Anyway, whatever. So she begins to look through his computer files, and she finds out that John Henry had a daughter named Natasha. Maybe still does. We actually don't know that she's dead, I don't think. Has or had, on his Earth, a daughter named Natasha with her. So she finds out that she was his wife on that Earth, and they had a kid together. So on their Earth, this is where it begins to tease the information out. We find that Lois, previously, after the birth of Jordan and Jonathan, Clark and her had another pregnancy where there was a miscarriage. And Lois is showing great weakness, of course. She's got this miscarriage, this baby, this human life that is, human Kryptonian life that is growing inside of her that, for whatever reason, her body rejected. And she's blaming herself for it, as most people do. But they go on to illuminate the audience that most pregnancies that don't work out, it's nothing to do with what the mother has done. It's just a genetic issue, and the body is like, nope. And the body terminates the pregnancy, and you have a miscarriage. So she is really traumatized by that, to learn this very important piece of information, and it hits close to home. But the real problem is a little bit later, when Jonathan and Lois are taking a break from looking in the RV, and Lois says, no, we'll continue looking later. Just wait for me. And Jonathan's like, well, no, I'm going to go in by myself. I'm going to go by myself, and I'm going to try and find weapons. He goes in there, and he gets locked in, because he accesses the weapons cabinet, reefs the door open. He wants the weapons because he feels powerless. Because Jordan's got powers, Dad's got powers. He's like, what do I got? So he wants the weapons to feel like he has some measure of power to defend himself and to fight. But the RV doesn't like that. The AI, he says who he is. He says that his name is Jonathan Kent. And the RV's like, shuts the whole thing down, shutters all the windows, and then begins a 20-second countdown before I'm going to terminate you. I'm fill you full of bullets, and before that, you're going to fill your pants full of poopy and urine, because you're going to be... So, I mean, that's what I would do. Just go everywhere. So, all he can do at that point is call for his mom, who shows up, hits the buzzer, calls for her husband, calls for Superman, who just makes it there just in time. The bullets are flying. They're in midair, and Clark shows up and shields him from all of the bullets. And then he uses his heat vision to destroy that part of the AI. And that's the other reason why Lois is really messed up. Why she's really upset. Why she's seeking this counsel. That Clark would ordinarily be there to talk to her for, but he was too busy, and he suggested that she go talk to someone else. That particular person. She's so upset because she thought she was okay due to after the miscarriage of Natasha, that she's not. She wasn't okay. And Jonathan almost dying really brought that whole thing back up. And she loses it. And she says some things that she regrets. Says that he's being stupid and his death would have been all his fault, and she really regrets it. And she doesn't want that to happen anymore. She's feeling terrible, and that's why she seeks out counsel. It's a heavy episode because it deals with miscarriage, which is a big topic. It deals with human grief, which is a big topic. It deals with the feelings of being powerless. That would be Jonathan, which is a big topic. You know, standing in the shadow of giants. Literally, as his mom calls it, holding the wrench. You know, he can juggle semis. Superman, my husband, can juggle semis, and I'm just left there. All I can do is hold the wrench. You know, so it's a very, very heavy episode. But by the end of it, Lois, who is seeking counsel, she happens to be seeking counsel at the same place that her father works, at the department. And she goes back inside because clearly there's a huge threat. Superman, who's gone in to the room with all the kryptonite, Kryptonian killing weapons, knows full well, shows up to try and save John, who tried to kill him previously. So, I mean, this is, again, it's Superman's character showing through. Certain death is basically what awaits him there. And he's like, I gotta try. Hopeful. Lois, who happens to be there, sees what's going on and shows up in the nick of time just before John Henry, who doesn't trust Superman, buries the spear into his heart, shows up just in time before that happens and convinces him not to. And John listens to Lois and decides not to. Now, by the end, as an object of trust between the two of them, he is allowed to leave, taken to the Kent farm, and given back his RV. And the two need to start learning how to trust each other. Because that's Superman's main goal. That is the show's main goal. For John Henry to begin to trust Superman, that the Superman that he dealt with on his Earth was a bad version, but this one would never, ever do anything remotely like that. And it's very cool how they leave it off. It almost seems like an end-of-season episode, because in the end, John Henry just kind of drives off into the sunset in his RV, leaving the next episode open to a slightly different storyline. I don't think we're going to see John Henry possibly for the next episode, or maybe even the next one. Maybe he'll show back up in the finale, which is what they're hinting at. Because the final point is they find out that there is the same thing that was happening on John's planet, the army of Kryptonians that Superman ended up siding with. That kind of thing is going to happen here. And an army is being raised. Now, why is that? What is that? What is going on? I really don't know. They bombard us with information. Is it the ex-Kryptonite turning the humans into Kryptonian-powered beings? Well, I mean, I would think so, that's got to have something to do with it. But in the same token, they also talk about the aliens being able to inhabit the minds of humans. I'm not really sure what's going on yet, if I'm being completely honest. Which is good. You want the show to kind of leave you asking, maybe I'm just a dum-dum and I missed something important. But at this point, I feel like they've left us with a few fairly large secrets. And I guess on a final note, it is nice to see Sam and Superman's relationship actually taking a turn for the better, where it seems like Sam, doesn't lose trust in Superman no matter what. He hasn't lost trust in him. He's very cautious, because that's his job to be cautious, to prepare for the worst, kind of like Batman, because that's Sam Lane's, that's his whole thing. But it seems like there's a moment where the relationship begins to be on the mend, where Sam is generally happy that Superman, after the kryptonite is exiting his system, he begins to be a little bit happy. He shows that he's relieved that Superman's feeling better, and he's actually really sorry that it happened in the first place. Like, he seems like he's genuinely sorry that it happened to his son-in-law in the first place. And I feel like there's a moment where there's that eye contact and a few lines of dialogue that symbolize that they are on the same team. That Sam is in no way an antagonist to Superman. The show could change, could surprise me, but at this point, I feel like their relationship will be firm as well. I feel like the show has something very big planned for the end. A huge finale. And it makes sense that there's a season 2 that's already been greenlit. What can I say? It's the best super show on CW, in my opinion. And that's not just because I'm biased. The writing is fantastic. We're getting more Superman. We're getting to know Tyler Hoechlin as Superman and Bitsy Talak as Lois and the whole cast as their characters more than you ever could in a movie. And I think it's fantastic. I can't wait till the next episode. What did you think? Let me know down in the comments section below. Sorry this review's been so rambling. This has been my talking rambling review. Hopefully you were doing something and just having my big dumb voice in the background. Maybe you were working on something and this was just kind of off to the side, because I would get bored looking at my face this much. Because as you know, I don't put very many clips in my episodical reviews. Movie reviews, yes. Episodes, not so much, unless I have the time, which, again, today I don't. So, hopefully you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and I will see you with the next one. Have a DC day, everybody. Take care. I just realized I didn't drink even one drop of my coffee. It's got special cream. It's got Irish cream.